Today, I get to spend some time with an attorney that I met through one of our deals with Wicked Smart Finance, Mr. David Sobel. He's a founding attorney and author. He has provided no nonsense legal advice to banks, to lenders, and to consumers like you and I and investors in the areas in commercial as well as residential real estate, business and residential lending, and contract matters. And this goes back to 1990s. He's ranked among an elite group of lawyers that hold a Martindale-Hubbell AV preeminent rating. It's sort of the gold standard in the attorney ratings. He was the managing attorney to several notable lending institutions throughout his career and their default loan servicing portfolio. And he's a licensed real estate broker on top of all this and has authored numerous books and articles on these issues in real estate and contracts. All right, Dave, with that as a little backdrop, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Chris. How have you been?
I've been great, thanks.
Thanks
I
for
said
having me.
just a second ago in the intro that you and I chatted and had coffee. So it's going to be just like that, where everybody gets to listen.
Right? I'll pick up the tab this time on the coffee.
I have a question, actually, a little bit more about your backstory in addition to what I said in the intro. But I
Sure.
wanted to ask you first, and I got asked this last night on a show, and I'm like, that's a cool question. So I wanted to ask you real simply, what the heck you did yesterday? Like, what'd your day look like yesterday?
Yesterday?
Yep.
Well, actually, I still like coming to work, Chris. And so yesterday was a work day, but I manage a pretty active, very busy boutique real estate and finance firm. And so I love to come in early. I look at my files and I strategize for the office. And so the work day is pretty busy with a lot of attorneys running around and dealing with scheduling, et cetera. So it would be like a normal workday for most people. But what I enjoy about my weekdays is after work, I go to the gym and I decompress for like 3 hours. So that's
3
my
hours.
favorite part. It's
Wow.
like my reward, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that would be my day. It doesn't sound fun, it doesn't sound glamorous, and then we had a friend from the west side of Michigan come and visit with us. And so we were up till like 11 o'clock last night, chit chatting because we haven't seen them in a while. And
And you're
that's
still
what I did yesterday.
fresh as a daisy to be on the interview. I love it.
Yeah. It's a good question though.
I was on Dr. Joe Vitale's show last night, and I'd never been asked that. And he asked, I'm like, oh, I like that. You get to know someone. And I know you're an early bird too, because I get to talk
Right.
in the morning, and my wife laughs because there's not too many people I can talk to that early in the morning, which is great.
Yeah.
All right.
She's thankful for that, right?
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
happy. All right.
So you've done and you do so much, Dave. And I was psyched when I met you in person and to have coffee. I said, we got to talk on the show because just so much you did. And then since then, things changed in the market a little bit. So I got a few questions.
Sure.
One is, what is like your favorite part of what you do, or what is the niche you're working on right now, right? Because there's so much going on, I know, in your firm.
Right.
Like just you.
I love things that are like Rubik's Cube. They present themselves with a legal issue in real estate or like a mortgage or loan issue. And my favorite part, and it is getting busier in this area, would probably be workout, trying to work through problems that are usually presented to us to kind of like more like curative. They have a curative requirement. So when times are good, and you're familiar with this, when times are good, people tend to be less risk adverse and they move forward with transactions or deals that maybe normally in a tighter economic time they wouldn't normally just rush into. So things are good. People want to take advantage of the market. It's hot in real estate. And so what we're doing now is kind of, going back through people's self-imposed legal purgatory, I would call it, where they've created problems for themselves. And it's unfortunate, but I understand a lot of times why people do things. It's a little bit of FOMO. And so I like having to put that genie back in the bottle, so to speak, and get people back on where they need to be for compliance purposes when it comes to real estate or with finance. Again, it sounds boring to a lot of people, but it's a necessary evil If you don't do your stuff properly in the beginning, it could be problematic later on. And so, uh, to that point, again, especially when the market's been so good since, let's say, 2014, there are a lot of people who wanted to get in on real estate deals, and they may not have done the best quality control. And that's why, they use advisors like myself or yourself to help them guide them through that. But they either choose not to do the due diligence, or they weren't even aware that they should be doing these things. So that's my favorite part of coming to work.
Yeah, you know what's cool about what you said? It rings. It's like for the wicked smart listeners, I hope they caught it. And that is, if they don't have someone like you, someone like us, and I'm not so naive to think just us and creative, but like whatever niche you're in, find someone that you can do that with. That's all.
Right.
Because whatever you think you're going to spend on coaching that sounds astronomical, you spend 10 times that on a problem. So
Right.
yeah.
That's true. I agree.
And I know I maybe even said this too. People that are really good like you in your field, I say, okay, he or she's a stress reliever. Like hand them the issue, right? And it goes away.
Right.
I remember in '08 in the crash, I had a tax issue, and I bring this guy to my events. He's coming next week. And he relieves stress with people with IRS problems. And
Right.
that was me in '08, right? So
Right.
I look at you like that, like you're helping me on a case, and I just go, okay, I know Dave's got it. And I have a 2-minute phone call, and I'm like, okay, done, stress relief. So
Right.
that's what you do. That's kind of,
Right.
yeah.
You hire what I always tell clients or potential clients, I'm a desk jockey. I'm a book wonk. And the one thing that I'm not good at is physical labor. And I'm talking about, like, I can't put a house together. I've done many houses, as we've talked about, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the guy who will do the manual work, not because I don't want to do it. I mean, sure, when I was a younger man, I used to, haul garbage out of houses. I've seen a lot of the stuff that your subscribers and your students see on a
Yeah.
regular basis. But as I've gotten older, I have other people do that for me. But I can't even hang a picture straight. I hate painting. I'll tell you I think it's a kind of funny story. One of the first houses that I got back years ago in like 2002. I didn't even know about kills. Now, if you know anything about the kills that had odor, I was painting a house that I got back, and I was in a bedroom painting, and I passed out from the kills.
I've been there.
And yeah, I didn't know, and I was actually like in a narrow hallway of this bedroom, and the fumes overcame me, and I passed out. Who would know? Not, I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who writes. I'm the guy who reads and does all the analysis. But there's a place for everything. And
Yeah.
so now every day we deal with investors. I just had a gentleman come in from overseas, and we're working with him on something, and he asked me for how to do something related to a contractor. And I'm like, you should be hiring, licensed contractors to do the work. You need to have somebody on the ground for you to go and inspect, etc. But if you're going to do it all and you've never done it before, or you want to test it for the first time, you may have an issue. So why would you want to do the roof?
Right.
Get a licensed roofer to do it, right?
You know what I love about your stuff, just that one story about the house, and you probably have hundreds more.
Mm.
I like next week at the event, I'll say for the millionth time to the audience, we
Yeah.
only bring people to you that are in the trenches like us, that know, like, this is not theory. You're the same way. You're in the trenches, you've seen it, done it, and therefore that's why we get along. That's why I love working with you. But I want the
Yeah.
listeners to know that, because I'm going to ask you in a minute to tell them
Sure.
who you could help.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any comments on that, like, because you're still in the trenches.
Oh, I mean, look at I have a million stories. Anybody who knows me, I've been in this business since 1990. I've been practicing since 1990, and my first real estate deal actually was in 1991. And if you went to my website, I'm not shy about the story, but you talk about practice what you preach. Look, I took back a property for a bank when I was working for the banks, and I wrote a check to a contractor to do the clean out and everything. And I lived in Cleveland at that time, and my wife and we were just married, so we were newlyweds, and we were headed back home to Detroit. And on my way out, I get a call from my boss out of New York, and he's like, "Hey, did you get that house taken care of?" And I was in the default servicing. I was a default servicing attorney, And I'm like, yeah, yeah, I paid the contractor. It's all taken care of. I knew nothing really about the business of real estate at that time. And he says, you didn't get that work done. I'm like, what are you talking about? I wrote a check to the contractor. It's all done. And he says, David, there's two Rottweilers living in that house. There's shit all over the place. It's all locked up. And the realtor went out there. Not one thing has been done. Now, this home was around an hour and a half from where my office was at. And I'm like, well, I was shocked because I paid somebody like $8,000. It wasn't my money, it was the bank's money.
Wow.
I wrote a check. I'm thinking, well, you wrote a check. They said it was done. Anyways, that's how naive I was at that time and so green. But what happened was my boss said, you're not going home. You're going, and he's in New York. He says, you need to get this fixed up. So, Chris, the first thing I said was, okay, no problem. I'll get another contractor to do it. And he says, no, you're going to learn a lesson and you're going to clean this house up yourself. There were two Rottweilers with crap all over the house. And thank God there was an Aco hardware store across the street or like in the neighborhood. I told my wife, my new bride, we're not going back to Detroit. I have to clean this house. And when I got there, I'm going to tell you, and I'm not shy to admit it, I was very weepy. I couldn't believe that, I had a degree and an advanced degree as a lawyer. The bank's paying me as a lawyer. And now I have to get on my hands and knees and by myself. And they made sure I cleaned and scrubbed that whole house for 2.5 days. I went and got a rain suit. And it was a terrible punishment, but it was a great lesson. So I can tell you this, after that, I never, ever wrote a check to any contractor unless I had third-party verification. I mean, I dealt with homes all over the country for different institutions.
Yeah.
Close to $4 billion of transactions under my belt. And ever since then, I never had any issues, including my own homes. But I always refer back to that lesson, which is trust but verify.
Yep.
And I didn't learn it except by doing. And everything I do when I give my legal advice, it comes from a practical standpoint of being in real estate.
So you said a bunch, but one thing that I picked up was you, at the time that sucked, but because of that, you have a new policy.
Oh, that policy was implemented in 1991, right after that, right after that event. I learned a lesson. I learned it from other people, right? The School of Hard Knocks. So
I don't forget why you're on this topic, Dave. Let the audience know two things. One, the best way to reach you, because I want them to be able to reach out to you like I do now. But secondly, who is your ideal avatar? Speak to who, and geographically too, who should reach out?
Well, I appreciate you asking. First of all, my firm is located in 2 states. We practice in Michigan as well as in Ohio. For state issues, for federal issues, we can go anywhere in the country. We deal with every type of real estate investor, but I'll tell you, Chris, it's easier for me to just say that in law, in the area of real estate, the American Bar Association actually says that there's approximately 60 subcategories of real estate law. Like in law itself, the ABA recognizes 80 practice areas, 80 specialties.
Wow.
So when you go to whoever your students are, whoever the students are dealing with, when it comes to a lawyer and you need assistance with a real estate issue, you should seek out a real estate attorney who deals in that area. Because many times, and we've talked about this, I clean up after legal vomit from clients and investors who go to the wrong type of attorney. We have people who say, well, oh, he's an attorney. He'll take care of me, or she'll take care of me. And then only to find that attorney is a criminal attorney, never dealt with real estate before, but they're looking for the business. So, the first thing is make sure you deal with a specialist, no different than when you deal with a roofer or a flooring guy or whatever it is, or a real estate agent. You want somebody who specializes either in a certain property type or in a certain area of law, or in, a type of home improvement. So all we do is real estate. Our avatar, as you say, is going to be a real estate investor. They could be a new investor that they're looking for some guidance, legal guidance. We'll help them with their corporate formation for the real estate investor. We do a lot of that. But also, we do with advanced investors like yourself in real estate, both commercial and residential. My background is every type of piece of real estate. It could be vacant, it could be industrial property, it could be vacant land, residential, you name it, I've done it. The only thing I don't do actually actually I don't like doing it is zoning. I can't stand what we call land use and zoning work.
Yeah.
Takes a That's a specialist within a specialty. You really should be dealing with that type of individual. People with title problems, people with property management company problems, people with seller bad faith issues. I mean, the list goes on. And the way that people can contact me and see what is available, what we deal with, you can go to our website, which is provenresource.com. And then also our phone number, my phone number is 888-789-1715.
Awesome, Dave. Well,
Yeah,
you said something that was interesting. I've gone with some students, so I'll call for a student looking for an attorney. And recent was
yeah,
Jersey.
uh,
Looking for someone that could do a sub two deal, right?
right.
Pleasure wanting to talk to you because there's all kinds of ways to do it. But I had four attorneys
Hmm.
tell me, no, you can't do that here. Until I got the fifth who said, yeah, I do thousands. It's just
Right,
amazes me.
right. Because they have the experience, and maybe initially that attorney felt the same way. No, we can't do that here, and then took some time,
Yeah.
looked into it. The reason he does thousands is maybe the first one he did was a little bit more difficult, but now he's done thousands. They're easy. He can pick up. He has an ear for what the issue is. So when he's talking to a potential client, they can pick up just like what you were just doing. You can pick up on the conversation. You can go, oh no, you can't do it that way, but let me tell you how you can do it.
Right.
So, Chris, the best attorneys are those that don't say no. The best attorneys are those who say no, but let me see what other options are available, and ask you more questions to determine what your corporate structure is, how you're doing the transaction, and then they can come back and say, based on what you're telling me, we can do it this way. We may not be able to do it this way, but we can make the transaction happen for you if we do it this way. So conversations, I'd like to think now I'm on my going on my 33rd year of law. Best thing I ever learned from one of my mentors. I had several coming up in the business because mentorship is extremely important, as you know, is to listen. So we're like I said, we're very blessed. We're very busy, and we're always happy to help more people. And somebody said, "What's your key? What kind of marketing do you do that you guys are? You always have a very nice stream of business. Thank God." And it's not marketing; it's being known that we'll listen to what the issue is, and that's our secret weapon. We'll listen, figure it out, and if we can't help you, we'll be the first people to say we can't help you. Maybe you should consider this, or maybe you need to contact this person.
Yeah.
But we'll listen, and that's a key to anybody's business success, I think. So
So you said you had mentors. Now this, unbeknownst to most, not me. I've had a mentor for every area of my life always.
yeah, yeah,
So you just said that was pretty critical when you were coming up in the biz.
very much, yeah.
And how did you pick them?
Sometimes, actually, to tell you, Chris, I didn't always have a choice. They were very successful people who were real estate investors who became clients of the bank, or you know
Ah,
at first became clients of mine. So the three most important people in my life were actually very successful real estate investors, two of them, and then one in the note business. So that's those people in business were the most had the most impact on my life. One, they're all older gentlemen. Only one is still living, but they were all great and gave me different perspectives, especially coming up through the Great Recession,
mm,
which was very difficult for most people. If you had not been through it before, I had not been through it before, but these couple of these people had. So it made my life so much easier when I
bingo.
was dealing with my own investments. But outside of business, how do you pick a good mentor? And I have somebody in the health area who's a mentor. I believe people who practice what they preach.
Yep.
There's a lot of, there's so many people online. I'm guilty of like the what do they call the shiny object syndrome
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
You know, I'm online quite a bit, and we're very active online ourselves, but for marketing purposes. But I think that the people who are the best mentors, and they're not people I hire as a coach. Well, I actually have to back up on that. I actually use a business coach for my office. So
Awesome.
no different than people hiring you to help them with their
Right.
business.
Right.
I I won't say my coach, but I will tell you this. I didn't realize I needed a business coach until we just kept getting busier and bigger and bigger and bigger. But here's what happened. I came from banking. I never really came I came from a legal department or a business that had a legal department.
Yeah.
I didn't really grow up in the law firm. So I didn't know there were a lot of things about running a law firm I had no experience with. And so how did I gain that experience? Initially I read, and then I found some legal business coaches that I still use, and I read initially their content. It made sense. And then the most important was that I knew that they actually went through, they ran through the fire themselves. They were
Right.
fire jumpers.
Right.
And because of that, my life now, um, because of these mentors, especially with business in practice management, it's not that I'm bigger or made more money, but my sanity of running a firm. We have approximately almost 18 people here in different capacities, and that's a lot.
Yep.
But it's not about that I'm making more money. It's about I can leave at a normal hour. You've heard that lawyers usually work late into the evening.
Yep.
I used to do that. I don't go to court anymore. I strategize mostly, and then the important clients and really important cases I'll be involved with. But delegation is something that's really important. But I learned all this. I probably digress a little bit, but you you definitely have to have a coach in whatever it is that you're looking to succeed in. Because if you're not there yet, you have to look to those people who've been successful. And I know I'm probably, you have a huge student base and client base. I know a lot of people who are already following you know that, right? It's not a plug or anything, it's just life.
No, I love it. You hit a few things. You hit, for the Wicked Smart listeners, I'll highlight a few. Not, I hope they're obvious, but one is you've been at this a year longer than me. I love having people on the show. We had breakfast that day or coffee, and I said, you got to be
Yeah,
on just because we've been around the same time. I think it's important. And then you mentioned being able to lean on your mentors who have gone through, in your case, recessions, but whatever,
right,
just life
right,
events or business event. So important because again, that can be costly. The alternative of that can be costly. The other side of that.
right.
So a couple questions. I got two things before, so we'll wrap up with these two.
Sure.
Given, because you came from banking, given
Mhm.
what's going on right now, I have my opinion. I can't wait to talk about it at my event next week. But
Yeah.
what do you think the investors should be thinking now? Should they be thinking panic? Should they be thinking opportunity? What are your general thoughts?
I think it's really that's a great question. And I have been thinking about it. Obviously, like anybody who's in business and wants to be successful, I don't think that, the people who succeed and get through this, first of all, you need to be persistent and you need to be consistent with whatever the work that you're doing. You just got to keep doing it, right? And you don't let you recognize that it's out there and there's some issues in the banking industry, but that shouldn't change. If you have an overall goal that you're trying to accomplish, keep working on that goal. One The mentor, we just talked about mentorship, but one of the things, it was very difficult in Michigan and in Ohio during the Great Recession, like it was elsewhere in the country, but particularly so when you have, I had a direct responsibility for hundreds of properties, and my loan to values were at like 50% prior to the Great Recession. So all of a sudden, my exposure during the Great Recession was 100%.
Yeah.
And I didn't have, like, I had lines of credit that were in the millions that I was on the hook for. And I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody, Chris. So I'm sharing it with you.
Appreciate it.
But I definitely was stressed. But one of my older mentors, who was very significant in my life, said, "This too shall pass." And even though he and I had some deals together, I was very, the money wasn't the issue for him. Okay, he had already gone through so much, but money wasn't the issue. Me, it was just like, juggling all these properties plus having a regular job. But his statement, "This too shall pass," and he never wavered. He just continued with whatever needed to be done. And I saw that, the Great Recession lasted from like 2000. For me, it was 2000, August 2007. That's when I started seeing people in Michigan stop making their payments on a consistent basis. I had a lot of land contracts, so that's what I did. But till like 2014 in our area when the market went
Right.
up. So my suggestion is right now, yeah, that stuff is going on. I wouldn't run on the banks. I wouldn't do anything. If you have deals that you want to do them, make adjustments, be flexible, be consistent, and be persistent. Be persistent. That's it.
I love it. And no, because you gave the underlying thing right there, because we agree on that. Just find someone that has been through it. Don't waver.
Yeah.
Dave, is there anything that you might have been thinking about the interview ahead of time? I know you're busy, but while you were thinking about it, is there anything that I didn't ask that you might want to share? Any nugget, any thought, anything?
First of all, that's a question I use usually. So it's a great question. No, you know what? I think the biggest issue, I think my last two words that people should be aware of is what we call, if you're looking to get anything out of this podcast today from me, it's called legal vomit. We clean up after a lot of legal vomit. And the people we're cleaning up from, the messes, are the ones who usually, the people are not covering all their bases. They are not doing anything but trying to cut corners. And when you cut corners, you're going to end up paying for something at a later date. So whatever you do, I guess the last thing I would leave with your listeners is, if you're going to do something, do it right the first time, right? I mean, this is just like an adage, age-old adage, but just to remember, if you're going to try and shortcut something, think of these two words, legal vomit. And there are people like myself who are happy to clean it up, but at a price.
Great visual.
That's, you can go to actually the site is legalpuke.com. Sorry. I hope people aren't watching this during eating.
Yeah.
Right. But legalpuke.com will take you to our website as well.
I love it. We'll throw it in the show notes as well. Dave, I appreciate you. I know we'll be connecting soon on many fronts. So, and I'd love to have you back on next year with the market changes. We'll see where we go, right? Or at the end of this year. So thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right, wicked smart listeners. That does wrap up our time together with Mr. Dave Sobel.